You can choose to be uncomfortable every time you're with that person, or uncomfortable for the 10 minutes it takes you to say, I feel uncomfortable when you demonstrate this behavior. Can you not do that anymore?
As an autistic person, people seem to be quite happy confronting me about my problematic behaviors, but aren't willing to have me tell me theirs.
I wonder if they think it's a teaching moment. Oh, let's teach the poor autistic boy how to.
Yeah.
He doesn't know any better.
Yeah. I went on a bit of a Jordan Peterson deep dive the other day, and he was explaining about how one of the problems that we have in society is that we don't understand the unconscious rules around opposite genders working together and building in things like flirtation and friendship and rivalry and all that stuff. We don't actually know what those rules are. Like, we haven't researched them. Nobody's mapped them out and studied them. And we don't know what the right thing is to do and how to deal with it. Because, what we've just said here about flirtation, a lot of people are going to disagree with that. And other people are going to mostly agree with us. And other people are going to think the line is different. So one of his examples is that, he spent a lot of time in the interview to explain about how he doesn't think that women's dress code should be regulated in the workplace. That's not something that should happen. But he says, though, that there is clearly a society draws the line somewhere. So if you say, can a bloke turn up to work in just his underwear? Can a woman just turn up to work in her negligee? The answer is no, right? But then the other side of it is, can we completely stop women wearing all makeup and other forms of accoutrement that they put on? Can we stop that? No. So the line is somewhere between the two.
But I think that's such a weird thing. I think whenever I've seen dress codes, right, it's always it's business casual, and then they will define business casual, but then they'll throw something silly in there like sleeves with women, right? Where a spaghetti strap is a no-go, but a tank top is fine. Those types of arbitrary rules are kind of
weird.
It's weird and kind of ridiculous, right? Business casual has a defined kind of parameters, whether or not you see an inch of my shoulder or 2 inches of my shoulder. If all it takes is 2 inches for you to turn into a raging madman, then perhaps you shouldn't be allowed out in public.
Yeah.
And the makeup thing, it's such a fucked up thing for women, because studies have shown that women who wear makeup to the office are perceived as taking their jobs more seriously than women who don't wear makeup. But then there's a fine line between the type of makeup, because if you wear even just a smidge too much, then you're not taking your job seriously. So there's always this weird, and when I would go to the office, I would wear makeup all the time because makeup is fun. I like wearing makeup. But then if I called in sick and then had to go to the office the next day, I wouldn't wear makeup because people were oh, are you okay? You don't look so good. It's kind of one of those things once you start, you got to do it forever, because if you don't wear makeup and then start, people notice. And if you do wear makeup and then don't, people think you're terminally ill.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing with blokes, is that obviously we were dominating the work environment up until quite recently. And we already had ways of regulating our dress code in the workplace. That's why suits were created, to create a uniform that was somewhat customizable, right? But we essentially all look, even now, men pretty much look the same when you go into a workplace. There's not that much of a bigger difference of people in a professional work environment. But then where women entered the workplace in higher numbers, there's always been more diversity in what women do with their dress codes. Just in general,
women have more options, right? We've got pants, we've got dresses, we've got skirts. There's just more opportunity to mix and match things.
And then it's so a lot of these old dress codes, I think, are a holdover from that male-dominated, where all work was male-dominated. And then now we're getting to more equality in more industries. Now we're coming up against problems because we're still trying to figure out how to manage these things. And then all of the older misogyny is hopefully dying off, because that is what is regulating a lot of those older codes, isn't it?
I think there's also a lot of if I can't have it, no one can, right? I work with guys in IT who they've been allowed to wear jeans to work because they're climbing under desks. They're going into server rooms, right? They're not going to wear a suit to climb under someone's desk to set up a computer, but people will see them in jeans well, how come they get to wear jeans and I can't wear jeans? That's not your fucking job.
Yeah.
Stop looking what everybody else has and lamenting about what you don't, and just fucking do your job. You do you, boo.
Yeah,
Like,
you're there to do your work. Like, if you're thinking about the way Billy Joe Bob from IT is dressed.
This is what drove me crazy after I quit smoking, because non-smokers would often complain about breaks that smokers were getting. And it's like, everyone's entitled to breaks in their work day, right? How you choose to spend your break is up to you. So if a smoker gets up and goes outside for a break, and like I used to know smokers who, instead of taking 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch, would just split up like 6 15-minute breaks during the day, right? Like you manage your time accordingly if you're in a position that allows you to do so. Like if you're punching a time clock, probably not. But if you're sitting in an office, you can go for a smoke break whenever. But non-smokers would lose their minds about that. But then when I quit smoking, how I know non-smokers would lose their minds about it is that when I quit smoking, I would see whenever the smokers would get up to go for a smoke, the non-smokers would get together to complain about them taking breaks. And it's like, you're on the same break. You're just wasting it in here instead of going outside. Like, and it doesn't matter what they're fucking doing. Do your job. Do what you're being paid to do.
Focus on yourself and you'll get promoted.
Exactly. Leave them alone. And also, as a non-smoker, it taught me to be more efficient because I had less time to get the same amount of work done because I was out smoking.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that when I've been in workplaces that have had people going off for smoke breaks, like years ago when I worked at McDonald's, for example, I'd either say I'm going for my smoke break and just go chill out for a minute and get 5 minutes of fresh air, or I'd say, because he's just come back from a smoke break, can I take 2 minutes? And then they'd say yes. There was never a problem because I asked them.
It's the lack of communication. There it is. And I think it all comes back to that, because it also, when we talked a couple minutes ago about uniforms in the workplace and flirtation and stuff in the workplace, it's about communicating, because people's boundaries are different.
Yeah.
Where some people do not want to be flirted with in even 0%. So that's their boundary, but other people don't mind. So, but you don't know unless you are okay having uncomfortable conversations, right? When someone does something, instead of running to HR to give them shit, just get, you know what, that makes me uncomfortable. I'd rather you not do that. Here's the boundary we're going to set.
Yeah.
And then you figure out how to move forward instead of making it a hostile work environment from the get-go. But
yeah, exactly. Go straight to HR, get someone fired for doing nothing.
Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, you've got some bloke jacking off in all the pot plants that everybody knows is a sex offender, but I'm not thinking of anyone specific. I think
it sounds pretty specific.
no, I'm just thinking that like the people who know how to play the game, the actual real offenders, like they get away with it for so long because people are clogging up with like silly claims and nobody's actually tackling the real issue, which is the office molester, you know?
Or they're just very good at hiding it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it then that's the problem is there's a lot of the stuff that's regulated, and I mean dress code is a really good example of that. All of this regulation just harms your everyday worker bee, you know, like they're having to deal with all this shit because one person was a dickhead. Like you need to punish and regulate the dickheads more.
This is always drove me crazy. Like when I was working in like call center, I saw it more there than anywhere else, is that managers would have like one person who was doing something shitty. So they would send an email to their entire team or address it in an entire team meeting because they were afraid of addressing that one person.
Yeah.
They would give 15 people shit instead of just one, right? Like address the situation, address their performance, because so my friend, her daughter is one of those types of people who, that if a teacher was giving one person in class shit, she thought they were talking to her, right? Like if she were to follow that into a work environment and you got 15 people, everyone's getting the same message because one person shit the bed. That one person may not get that message because they're going to be like, I'm innocent. Where like someone who's completely innocent is going to be like, are they talking about me? Is that about me? Like, do I have to do something? And it's going to cause them a panic. Address the situation. Everybody's afraid to talk to everybody. Makes me mad. I'm on a mini rant.
It's a good one though, because conflict resolution is at the heart of everything. It's one of the things I was talking about the live last night with that rich bloke, and then we were just talking about how men on construction sites and stuff resolve conflict, and like he said, you know, he's been doing it for 20-30 years and he's only ever seen a couple of fights. And the way it's presented in the media and all this stuff about men and toxic masculinity, you'd think that we were fighting and beating the shit out of each other every 5 minutes. But it's like, it's not the case. Like, if you leave blokes alone to do their job, they figure it out, you know?
They don't have duels with nail guns? That's how I saw it going down.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, no one. I think it's silly when people are like, "Oh, they don't like confrontation." I don't know anybody who likes confrontation, right? I think anybody who likes confrontation is probably kind of an asshole, but you don't have to like it to do it. Like there are some behaviors that need to be addressed, and it's uncomfortable in the moment, but then you can choose to be uncomfortable every time you're with that person, or uncomfortable for the 10 minutes it takes you to say, "I feel uncomfortable when you demonstrate this behavior. Can you not do that anymore?"
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's an ugly conversation to have if you don't feel
Mm.
comfortable having it, but it's better than like hiding behind the water cooler whenever they're picking on me.
One of the things that I find interesting as well is that as an autistic person, people seem to be quite happy confronting me about my problematic behaviors, but aren't willing to have me tell me theirs. Tell
I
them
wonder if
theirs, I
they
mean.
think it's a teaching moment.
Yeah.
Oh, let's teach the poor autistic boy how to.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't know any better
Yeah.
because everyone's the hero of their own story, right?
Exactly.